who's watching this video. I have a lot to get through regarding my story, and I want to thank ApexTV for distributing my message. I do appreciate that. There is no way that I would have the reach on my own without ApexTV distributing my message. And I have contacted a lot of other news stations and media outlets, but ApexTV was the only one that got back to me. My story starts, well, my natural year is the year 2082. And the world as you know it, it will change a lot. And the reason I'm actually standing here in the year 2018 is because they sent me back on a variety of missions to stop major events that could cause a lot of havoc in the world. Events that could make the world a worse place overall. So that's why I'm here in the year 2018. The world in 2082 changes more than the period in between 2018 and 2082 is full of more change than ever before in all of human history. And I know what it's like in the far future as well, because I've actually been on a variety of time-traveling missions in which I've gone in the far future as well as back in the past. The earliest I've gone into the past is about 60 million years ago, and I actually saw dinosaurs in their natural habitat. I saw T-Rexes, Stegosauruses, Triceratops, as well as a lot of other ancient creatures, and we actually discovered a lot of ancient creatures that were thought previously not to exist. It turns out that giant lizards like the T-Rex, they actually are cold-blooded. However, they're covered in a lot of feathers. The theory that they were just skinned like the modern reptiles is incorrect. They're actually covered in feathers and they come in a variety of colors. I saw purple T-Rexes, green ones, and I would actually say that my trips into the past were more interesting than my trips into the far future, because when you go into the far future, the world has changed a lot. However, it changes in a more predictable way, because in the far past there is no such thing as humans. And in the far future, humans again do disappear. And they genetically modify themselves. They modify their brains to be more powerful. Their brains can actually interface with the internet, with other brains, other people they can interface. And I want to talk a little bit about what it's like to go into the far past. So what happens is you get into a spherical machine. And by the way, time travel will become open to civilians. It will actually be released to the public in 2028. And it is open to civilians. It is open for commercial use. Eventually. I think that's another 10 years for you guys watching in 2018. However, time travel actually does exist, as I'm speaking to you right now in the year 2018. The reason I'm able to speak with you here today is because most of the people who watch this aren't going to believe what I'm saying. And that's fine, I'm not trying to convince everybody. And it actually works to my benefit because I can say things like this. And that actually serves us for some historical purpose, because we're going to be able to look back at these videos and actually see that the predictions, what I'm saying are not predictions. I guarantee they're going to happen, but they're going to be seen by everybody watching this as predictions. So they're going to see that everything that I'm talking about here in the year 2018 is going to have come true by the year 2082, which is the year that I'm from. Now, to actually travel in time, you would get into a spherical device. This was the actual time machine. However, how the whole process works, again, I'm not a scientist and I'm not involved in actually knowing how it works. Because let's be honest, do you know how the device you're watching this video on right now, do you know how it works? And likewise, I wasn't aware of exactly how the device that I used worked. But we do know that, at least I know that it does work. And it actually becomes somewhat reliable, especially by the year 2028 when they release it. Completely reliable. You can actually put in a set month of the year and you will go there. However, it is not down to the exact day until somewhere in the mid 2030s. Regarding my trips into the past, you go into this spherical device and there's actually a quantum computer built into the device. And the quantum computer allows it to interface with other parallel universes. Because the way time traveling works is you actually enter a parallel universe. And the parallel universe is one very similar to our own. It turns out the more similar parallel universes are closer to each other than the parallel universes that are way different. So the ones that are similar to each other are closer together. So it's actually easier to interface with them and go to that selected parallel universe. So the way I time travel is I actually went to parallel universes by way of this machine. Again, it was a spherical machine and it had one circular window on it in which I could look out and see exactly what was going on the outside. When time travel started, we would actually interface with the person's body directly and send just their body. This would cause them to go unconscious, but having this machine to actually do it, the machine does transport with you, but the machine does not become... Actually, the machine becomes invisible, but the person within the machine doesn't. So the person within the machine remains conscious the whole time. And during my experience time traveling, you could actually see outside the window it would become white, and eventually you would just... Slowly it will take around 5 to 10 seconds for the entire process, which is quite fast. And to be able to time travel, obviously, we do also have teleportation, by which we can travel to any place on Earth. Again, we have teleporters on the Moon, Mars, Mercury. Venus is actually starting to be terraformed in the late 2050s, but we have these teleporters, and what you can do is simply step inside one. You pay a fee, because again, these are commercial. These aren't just for scientists, these aren't just for testing, they actually are commercial machines, and what it does, it takes a copy of all your atoms and it sends it to another one of these teleporters. And it actually rearranges your body in another place, so you can actually reappear anywhere on Earth, granted, that has one of these teleporter machines. And again, they've become very, very common by the year 2082, which is again the year I am from. But when I went into the past, you go into this machine, you sit down, there is one seat, and you would sit shriveled, kind of in a ball. It is a very small machine. I would estimate 40 inches from the bottom to the top. The way it would work is it would start spinning. It was perfectly balanced on the ground, so it would start spinning on the ground. The outside of the machine would go completely white, and it was a bright light that was peering in. This is actually when you travel beyond the dimension we're in. So you travel to another dimension, and then from there you can interface with the different parallel universes. So then you would go back to another parallel universe in which is very similar, but it would be in a different time and everything else. So you can't actually go travel within one timeline. It has to be another timeline. So seeing these dinosaurs, what we would do is the machine would appear back, but it would be in the sky. So you're actually watching it. It has a cloaking method in which the machine could remain invisible. And the machine remains invisible, so you can't see it from the ground. However, sometimes you might be able to see it a little bit, but you could look down on events and you could go back to prominent events throughout world history. It was just one of the most remarkable experiences possible, and you can actually pay to do this, which is pretty amazing. We went back and we were looking on these events. I've seen several major world events throughout history, for example the Gettysburg Address. I actually went back and I watched Abraham Lincoln give his speech. I was actually there. You may have seen famous paintings throughout history that show these strange devices in the sky. Those are actually time travelers from the future. from the not even the so far future, from what you're watching right now. It's actually them who came back in time and were watching certain events throughout history. Sometimes we just go back in time to see how people lived. It serves for some historical context, to see how people lived, see what is correct, because as you know, there weren't video cameras back, for example, during the Gettysburg Address. There was no video cameras, so we can go back and can actually record these events and show it to everybody back in the future. It really is amazing how far the technology goes. I personally went back to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. We actually have cloaking devices in which we can walk around the actual events. So while they were signing the documents, my team and I could actually walk around. We do have bigger machines in which multiple people can fit in, and a lot of the unidentified flying objects that people spot, they're actually time travelers from the future who are looking back on past events. So they're actually seeing things that are some of our bigger machines, but most of my missions have actually been solo. So I go into one of these machines by myself, and it's just the most remarkable experience, and this is coming very soon, mind you, in the next 10 years. So it's coming very soon, and it's going to start off being very expensive. But within the next 5 years following it, almost anybody is going to be able to afford it. These machines are very regulated, so you can say, why could anybody time travel? They're gonna cause paradox by going back into that time. This actually isn't the case because they're inside of these machines and they're floating above events. They can actually look down, and again these machines are invisible, so nobody else can see them. The people who travel back in time, there's actually no chance of them influencing any types of events or anything. Yes, that's a good question. The furthest into the future I personally have gone, it was the late 9000s. I'm trying to remember exactly what year. I think it was 9840. It was somewhere around there. It was 8940. It was within that 10-year range. I actually went there. The world was an amazing place. It was sort of a utopia. And again, this is by interfacing with parallel dimensions. The world was essentially a utopia. There was these beings, they were very tall, much taller than normal modern day humans, and I assumed they would actually be descendants of modern day humans. I didn't stay long, I think I stayed about 15 minutes, but I actually did exit my machine. It is commonplace for time travelers to go to the future and see these things. They're not in any shock when you travel to them, because it happens all the time. Someone will pop up in one of these machines and they actually greet them. We actually do have a time agency which keeps all the regulations, makes sure no paradoxes are happening, makes sure they're not changing the future in any majorly influential ways, which is again why I can't give too much pertinent information regarding major world events that are going to come very soon for you guys. I can't say too much, that's why again I'm talking about more than the far future. I will say within the next 10 years time travel. Again, time travel already exists for you, but it is being kept secret by the major governments of the world. And I know a couple major governments do have it, including the United States. They actually do have time travel, and they're keeping it completely classified. They don't want anybody to know about this. Which again, I personally am against them keeping time travel such a secret, and the secrecy revolving around that. I'm against that. I think they should have opened it up to the public long ago, but I see where they're coming from, because they want time travel to be completely safe before they release it to the public, and they don't want to release that they actually know how to do it yet, because independent hackers might try to find out how to hack and everything. But believe me, when the time agency gets involved, it becomes very safe. This actually, you can't visit past relatives again, you can't come into any contact with them because it would cause more damage than it would good. So you cannot actually meet with your past relatives. However, it would be nice to do that. Again, this is in a parallel universe, so that's why you don't see people coming back. Future versions of you coming back, I'm sure they already came back, they watched you. That might be kind of uncomfortable knowing that people are watching you. Remember, they are your future descendants. and the world changes a lot, so that's the way it is. That's just the way they're using the technology. Again, they're using this technology to some degree to make money because it is one of the most amazing revolutions. You have to capitalize on it somewhat. It makes sense for them to do that. It is good that they waited until it was completely safe before they release it to the public. But in my personal opinion, I think they should have released it before. I would say my most amazing experience during my time travel process was actually going to see dinosaurs. Because we've theorized about them so much, and to actually see them, it was like being in a museum. I saw T-Rexes eating velociraptors and velociraptors preying on other species of dinosaur. It was really amazing, and I stayed within my machine this whole time, and again the machine was flying far above the ground, and I was looking down. I was looking at the events play out on the ground. Different dinosaur species I saw gigantic. Everything was much bigger back in these prehistoric times. They were very big. Like, for example, I saw mosquitoes and other species of insect that were gigantic, and they were flying. Yes, good question. I would estimate I spent 2 whole days back 60 million years ago. I actually slept within the machine. Again, it does get a little bit cramped in there because you're in a 40-inch diameter sphere. It does get a little cramped, but again, I think it was overall worth it. Human progress is gonna go very far within the next 10 years for you. 100 years, 200 years, looking into the future for you, it's gonna be very amazing. I hope everybody out there who's watching this takes care and thinks about the future, tries to make the future a better place. Because there's a lot of things you can do. Global warming is a major issue in the future. It's going to displace a lot of people. The water will melt, the ice will melt rather in Antarctica and in the Arctic, and that will make the sea levels rise up. That's because of the increased CO2 in the atmosphere. So we need to be thinking about how we can solve certain issues like that. But overall, it's very amazing in the future, and I just want to share that sentiment to everybody watching this. And I know not everybody is going to take my story for what it is. Again, I don't have any physical evidence of any kind, and even if I did, which I do, I can't show anybody because it would cause a more negative impact on the future than a positive one. So I can't show anything regarding our technology or anything. We have had instances where people would come back and would actually break the rules of the time agency, and I can tell you for a fact they're not gonna be time traveling again. For example, if they show you a picture from the future, or if they show you any kind of evidence from the future, I can guarantee you there's gonna be major consequences for those people. I'm not gonna take those risks. I do have a family back, or actually forward, for you guys in the year 2082. Things become a lot more relative. So technically, my family and my whole life is within a different dimension, and we can actually classify these different dimensions. It really is incredible. I want to thank everybody for watching this video. Thank you, ApexTV. All you guys for coming out here today to listen to me. I really do appreciate that. I appreciate you getting my story out there. I want as many people to hear it as possible. Thank you so much. Yes, it's been a pleasure.